Bonjour à toutes et tous, vous écoutez First Print, votre podcast comics préféré pour une nouvelle émission du format Super Friends. C'est dans ce podcast qu'on va à la rencontre des personnes qui font vivre la pop culture et la culture comics par leur travail. Et après avoir reçu une seconde fois Emma Rios, eh bien nous avons le plaisir également de retrouver Jesse Lonergan qui est de retour en France à l'occasion du festival Début 2025. C'est surtout pour la sortie de Drome, son énorme pavé de plus de 300 pages qui vient de sortir chez 404 graphiques. Donc on va pouvoir reparler de cet album qu'on avait un tout petit peu évoqué en début d'année. Le générique se lance et puis on se retrouve en anglais avec l'ami Jesse. Hello, Jesse Lonergan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine also. It's been like 10 months since the last time we spoke.
Yeah, in January.
Yeah, but it feels like yesterday.
Yeah, it doesn't feel that almost a year ago. it feels much more recent.
But we ended the last interview by like we can't wait for Drome to be out to read it. So now it's out and we read it.
Yes.
So we have to speak a little bit about that album.
Okay.
But can you go back to we mentioned it a little bit 10 months ago, but could you go back a little bit to the idea of that graphic novel, how it came to be?
There's sort of, I feel like for a lot of my work, like the narrative and the visual form are very entwined, and so there were visual ideas that I felt like I began to explore with like Hydra, but I wanted to sort of continue to explore and sort of push further with those sort of visual ideas. And then narratively, I've been recently, like the stories that I found compelling are sort of these mythological early stories that have this sort of timeless quality, and sort of wanting to work within that realm and use sort of those sorts of stories combined with like the form to create sort of this big epic work.
So when you say you wanted to continue to explore ideas, it's just in visual terms, or was it also in terms of a story?
I think it's both. Like
that's too easy. No. You have to choose.
I think I lean visual always, and sort of, but I think what interests me in terms of like comics is making something that can sort of only exist within comics, like that really, like you can't adapt it to another medium. Like it can't be turned into a film because the aspects of the medium that are telling the story and conveying the ideas are sort of baked in to it, and you can't separate it out. And so it's, in order to do that, I feel like I have to create the narrative and the visuals at the same time. And so I have like a very loose narrative outline, but then in terms of sort of at a page by page or sequence by sequence level, I sort of do that visually. And I try as much as possible to sort of I find working visually sort of lets subconscious ideas out. And so it changes the narrative as it goes along. And so I have this like a map for how to get there, but in terms of figuring out how I will get there, or how to solve a certain problem narratively, I do that visually. And so I think of it as both. I'm sorry if that's a cheater answer.
That was totally a cheater answer, but we're used to with you artists, always cheating. But in terms of when you mentioned the loose outline, it means that in terms of script, you don't write the sequences, like
No.
you don't do the really like the I don't know how to say it. The breakdowns into like okay, this page is going to be 6 panels, this one is going to be 20, this one is going to be a splash. So you never do that.
No, I think
It's only in your brain.
well, it's I think with the way, especially in Drome, the way the pages work, I don't think you can write those ideas out.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how you would.
It's like you can sketch them out, and you can, and so I think that the visual process is sort of unwritable. I will write like I will write notes on what happens or what I think a sequence should be. And in the few dialogue sections, I will work on that dialogue before I go to the page. But I think in terms of comics, I feel like I sort of think of it almost like a performance, and there needs to be this creative element at all points. And so I feel like if I write too much before I start drawing, the drawing has lost its creative function. And if I pencil too much before I ink, the inking has lost its creative function. And I don't know if that makes sense. Like if I do a really, really finished pencil drawing,
it's too much prepared.
There's nothing I can add in the ink because the pencil's already done it. So I leave everything to like leave the next step, have sort of the maximum creativity and I don't know. I think it's sort of a magical thing in art that you can see creativity, you can see confidence, you can see a brain thinking, and I want to keep that as fresh as possible while I'm making art. And so that's sort of how I approach the project. And so I think a lot of people, the way they work, maybe they'll like thumbnail out the entire book and they'll know exactly how many pages it's going to be. But
that's not you.
That's not me.
Because it was my next question is like when you started Drome, did you know that you were going to be doing a 328 page graphic novel?
No. I knew it was going to be big, but I did not know how many
because
pages.
You're not planning out like how many pages a sequence can take. You just do it and then you happen to see like, oh, well, it was 20 pages.
It takes as long as it takes, and I think at least for the US, I go back and edit, and so I will produce a finished page like fully penciled, fully inked, colored, and then maybe decide, oh, this needs to be cut, and just throw it away. Get rid of that page, and then like I have no preciousness about that. Like I will just go back and cut and edit and move things around and maybe change the order, because I feel like it's kind of like I feel like it's not when I'm producing finished pages, it's not my job to be the editor. My job is to produce as well as I can. And then when I'm done, I'm the editor. And now I need to be like, oh, that doesn't work. Cut that, tighten that.
So that means that with for Drome, you didn't work with an editor?
So in the US, it was released by 23rd Street Books, which is an imprint of First Second. And I gave them the finished book. And there was an editor, and they did give me some notes, like mainly... there was like one sequence where they felt a character had sort of disappeared, and they felt the reader would lose track of the character. So they wanted me to add a little bit, which which I agreed with. So I did, but there was not much editing involved. I think
Is it something that because you don't want to have someone looking on your work while you're doing it?
not that I don't want people looking at my work. Like with Drome, I did it on Patreon, and I put 2 pages up a week for 3 or 4 years. So people were looking at it, and people could comment on it. I think as a creator, the thing that is a challenge is I will never see the book the way the reader sees the book. Like, I was working on Drome for 5 years, and people read it much quicker than that. And so
It just took me 4 years.
Yeah. So my perspective on it is distorted because of how long it takes and how much time I spent on each page. And so that's part of why I go back and edit when I think it's done, is because then I can see it in the form that others will see it in. But an editor has an even better view of that form when it's done. But I don't know that they have a better view while it's in process. At least for things that are like Drome, I think.
You mentioned that you were doing it on Patreon.
Yeah.
Why did you choose this way of publishing it? Is it because like it was too much time if you were just focusing on that project without being paid for something else, or?
I mean, yeah, I feel maybe it's the same in France. In the US, as a comic book artist, as an independent comic book artist, it's always sort of a scramble to make money. And so if I can get some support from Patreon, that's great. And that was just, I think my thought is like, oh, I could support myself a little bit with Patreon. It's sort of, it became a very helpful thing because you do have an audience, and with my financial situation, try and speak about it. I have to take on other work, and I'll be working on other books. And I did 4 other projects with Drome in the background constantly. And so it required a lot of discipline to get Drome finished. And I think having a Patreon and having like a weekly update and having not a ton of people, but just a few people who were paying attention sort of kept me on task that I need to produce pages for Drome, even while I'm producing pages for, Miss Truesdale in the Hellboy universe, or Man's Best, or Arca. Like, all of those projects were done while I was working on Drome. And so it's not an issue for you to switch between projects like that? No, not really. I think I love drawing, so it's no. I think it's hard for me to stop working. Like, that is actually an issue of like, I will sort of always feel I should be working. But I think that those projects, one, I'm working with a writer on all those, and because it's a collaboration, it's not the same as me working on my own. And so I think I see them as being very different, and the way I work on my own stuff and the way I work with a writer is very different. So it's not a difficult shift because it feels like 2 different things. And I think possibly the working with writers pushed Drome further away from what I was doing. Like it was like, I was working with a script where it's like 5 panels on this page, 6 panels on that page. And it would make me be like, okay, I'm going to get to my 35 panels, sort of, and do what I felt like I couldn't do in those other projects.
Is it hard for you to find the right structure for a page because we could have a ton of examples from Drome, but I'm looking at them at some page with a lot of lines and curves.
Mm-hmm.
And like the panels just being panels, but participating to the whole structure of the page. And I'm just wondering, like, how do you know when it does feel right? Like, how do you know that okay, this is good storytelling? I know what I'm doing.
I think I spend a lot of time with the laying out the page, and I always start with with Drome with this 5x7 35 panel grid, and then I do okay, here's an idea of how it could work, but I think it could work better. Here's another idea. And so a page might have like 4 or 5 or 6. I mean, if I decide I throw away the page after I finished it and go back and do it again, it can have like a lot of variations on the composition. And so I spend a lot of time in that phase of like getting it to work the way I want it to work. So yeah, I think it does take time.
So what is the true number of pages for Drome?
The true number?
Yeah. How many pages did we not see?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think it's that many. Hydra was worse. I feel like Drome, it's probably maybe 50.
50
pages.
Just thrown away.
That I threw away. Okay. But with Drome it was 50 pages. With Hydra, I'd also say it was probably 50 pages.
But which is the same amount
with
of
the same amount
story,
that are in the book. And I think
you could almost do a director's cut or not.
No, they're thrown away for a good reason.
Forever? Okay.
They don't work. Like I think for me personally, Hydra is a much more experimental project, and I think it was a very messy project because I did throw away basically an equivalent book of mistakes, but I learned from those mistakes. And so Drome, I have more of a sense of like what will work and what won't work, because it's Hydra came out here this year, but I released it self-published in 2016.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's 10 years ago for me. And then it was released by Image in 2020.
Yeah. So you've been doing quite a lot of progress.
Yeah. I've done a lot of work
also, yeah.
Since Hydra to Drome, and also like with Hydra is very important to me because it came out from Image in 2020, and all of a sudden I had a comic book career, and I had a job, and basically since then I've just been working in comics and just drawing so much more than I ever drew before because I always had a day job. And comics were what I would do after the day job. And now it's my full-time job. And when it goes to that thing, all of a sudden you're producing so much more work, and your skills, even if you're not trying, are going to grow. In the last 5 years, I feel my ability has increased probably more than the previous 10,
I wanted also to speak about how you envision the movement in the pages, like how you guide the eye of the reader with the lines and also with using the blank spaces or the negative space.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the whipping bull scene.
Okay. Yeah.
Which are amazing because you can just feel yourself like I'm guided. I can't do anything. My eyes are being controlled by Jesse by distance. Yeah.
I don't. I think. I think it's where my interest is in that movement, and I think I think people often talk to me about that the movement and the action is very unique. and I think it's part of it is that what I like about comics is that the panels at once are sequential, but they don't have to be, and they can be juxtapositional, where it's the relationship to each other, and it sort of makes it, I think, thinking about it that way, where it's not just time but it's also space, allows for more movement and more dynamics, and using the way an eye can move across the page, not just within one panel, but within multiple panels, to have that effect. And yeah, I watched videos of people cracking whips in slow motion, you know, and like I looked at like Edward Muybridge, you know, Edward Muybridge. He's one of the first film people, and if you don't know his name, or I might just be saying his name incorrectly, but it's like those photos from the early 1900s, late 1800s of like people walking and people running and a horse running and a horse walking, where it's like he takes like 30 pictures of a walk. And so I look at those kinds of photos and look at those videos and figure out like where the key movements are, that and how you can create that effect of like a whip crack in a silent medium, you know.
It's amazing. No, the result is properly amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I really
Thank
think so. Speaking about the universe, also it's
the universe.
No, not the universe
the
of
world of Drome.
You know,
Okay,
the world of Drome. Like, we could speak about the universe. What do you think about the Big Bang?
Yeah,
is it a hoax? No, but so you said you like the mythological stories, and it really feels like it's a whole myth that you've been building with Drome. It's really reminded me of. I had some books when I was young about Egypt, you know, about the tales of Egypt, about Horus and Ra, and it just really feels like you're reading this kind of a tale about the birth of night and day and this kind of cycles. I just wanted to know what were your inspirations for that. I know that Gilgamesh has been quoted a lot.
Yeah, Gilgamesh is definitely one of them that comes up a lot. I like Ovid and Metamorphoses. Was a book, probably the reading a version of that was kind of one of these like moments of just like that there's something about these stories that resonates, and how simple they are, but how well they work, and sort of so I felt like I had a lot of ideas in my head, but it's sort of about like kind of trying to distill them and get them down to their like most basic forms of these conflicts, and so like with the villain, who I call like Patch, there's this like hunger for more and this anger at rejection, which I think is the hunger for more, I think, is something very present in our current world, you know, like, and so that kind of mentality, instead of doing it in like a small story or a grounded story, I like it in a big story where like it's not like subtle. It's very direct, but I think because of that, it has that sort of resonance where like a story, like the stories I think from mythology and like, you know, in Ovid and the early Old Testament Bible stories, they resonate, and they're still a part of our lives because there's something in them that even if it's sort of an abstract, we connect to. And so I think sort of like taking these maybe like emotions or personal conflicts that I have and, you know, choices I have to make, and then sort of abstracting them into this grander scene where it's life and death as opposed to annoyed, not annoyed, you know. It was sort of the motivation.
And in terms of visuals, did you have specific inspirations
Visually?
To design the characters, to design the universe?
Yeah, I think I started with characters that looked like they would fit in more in Clash of the Titans or, you know, very sword and sandal type of look. But it felt like that I wanted the book to sort of have a lot of possibility in it. Like I think there are great things about genre and stuff. You know, you can use it to do certain things, but it also creates certain expectations of how things work. And I felt like if I make it look, you know, like a Gladiator or Clash of the Titans, it creates too much of an expectation on the part of the reader. And so I wanted something that made it a little off. And so for a lot of the character designs, I feel I leaned like very much on Jack Kirby and sort of his sort of aesthetic of superheroes and like the new gods, and using that to sort of create a certain level of unreality, but also a certain level of possibility for how the story could go. And so I leaned on that sort of for the character designs and the look of the characters. You know, for composition, Chris Ware has been a big influence. Mobius. I feel like Kirby, Ware, and Mobius are sort of the three big ones. And then I feel I take from everything I see, you know, like I steal ideas from everywhere.
So you're a stealer.
Oh,
you're a thief.
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
a thief.
Like, yeah. I sometimes I think like, in Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, he's like the invisible art.
Yeah.
And I just, I don't know if it's my ego, but
you said you wanted to make it visible.
I want to make it visible. And so like sometimes I feel as a maker of comics, I might see something that someone's doing that the reader maybe doesn't notice because it's too subtle. And so I'll be like, I like that idea. I'm going to do it so it's not subtle. Like, and you have to pay attention to it. And so like talking about the movement of the actions between panel and panel, like there was, you know, I can remember a Valerian story where like it's the first one, I think, the Drowned City with, I forget, Drowned World, where like, you know, Valerian like is running along a rooftop and hops onto another rooftop in a different panel. And it's like very quick, very small, but I'm like, we can blow that out and like make that can be a focus. And so I can take that sort of movement from one panel to another panel, and it's like, well, what if we stretch it? What if we force the reader to acknowledge it? And so I sort of feel like when I'm looking at a comic, whether it's something I like or if it's something I don't like, why I don't like it, that goes into my brain and then comes out somewhere.
And when you say about making the invisible art visible, it really shows with the goddess in this book, which is just made of the negative
all
space.
negative space.
Negative space.
That was,
which is
it's a challenge.
Great idea, but it has to be very challenging.
It because I feel there's a conscious creative aspect to my like paneling and the dense grids, but there's also like an idiosyncratic, I can't help it aspect, and like the need to have rules for how pages work is in my brain, and like the need to mathematically measure out panels. I can't imagine not measuring out the panels so that there is a mathematical relationship between all of them. it has to be, like, for me, like, and so, like, that decision of, like, the goddess is going to exist in the negative space of the panels, it creates so many complexities of how you can design a page, because you can't draw her, you know, like literally, like, you have to have it's in the negative space, so all the rules of how the rest of the page work change because you have this negative space driving, you know, creating all these ripples of design ideas.
It must be really crazy in your head.
What?
It must be really crazy in your head when you're designing these pages.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy. I think I make a lot of sense. But I think
we don't see a lot of people using that much of the negative space to make a character out of it.
Yeah,
we don't see that often.
Yeah, well,
or do we? But
no, no, I don't think you see too many negative space characters. But
did you just want to be an original?
What?
Did you just want to be like, oh, I'm going to be an original. I'm going to do something that no one's do.
Maybe. I think, like, I think with my, I just, like, I think I've worked in comics longer than maybe people know. So, like, but there was a long period of obscurity, and at some point I just realized, like, I'm working so hard on this, and nobody's looking, so I'm just going to do what I want to do, and with that, some success has come, and so I just sort of do it the way I want to do it, and it's not really. I guess I always feel like no one's going to get it or appreciate it, but I just can't help it, and I'm just going to do it that way because it's of interest to me. And I think, I guess, with, like, working on Drome, it's like, well, I have these other jobs, and I can do those other jobs and make a living and support my family. So this book, that's just what I want to do, and I don't, and, like, you know, when I finished it, I didn't know if it was going to get published by anybody. You know, I hoped, I wanted to, but I was also, like, looking into the math of figuring out how to self-publish it myself and distribute it myself. And then, you know, I sent a PDF of it to Matt Kint. Matt Kint was like, no, like he connected me to his agent. His agent has all the connections, and then, you know, it got a publisher. But, like, and I feel in hindsight, all of a sudden, whatever happened seems like it was meant to happen. But if I think back to a year and a half ago, I had no idea how this book was going to come out, in what form it was going to come out, if it was going to be split up into 5 parts, if I was going to be self-publishing it, if I was going to try and do it at a comic book company in the US, you know.
Is it something that scares you or excites you? Not knowing.
It just is. I guess there is a fear of failure, but I don't know. I maybe in some ways I've sort of been spoiled in that the things that I have just done because I wanted to do them and kind of said I don't care what happens have been the most successful. You know, like Hydra is far and away, like, the most successful thing I've done, you know, like, and it got the most attention, and now Drome is getting more attention. And so I don't know, that kind of, that gives you a confidence that, like, okay, I can do what I want to do, and it'll work out. Things work out, you know.
Okay, so we can read Drome in different ways about what it tells us about. We can have the whole mythological and world building story. We got the love story, but once that interests me, and it's from my friend Corentin. it's about the creation of a comic book, because we've got the three colors, the negative space, the blacks, and they all have to work together to be an actual graphic novel. How was it the main goal? Actually, was it a story about like how do you craft a comic and tell a story about the crafting of?
I think so. Like there is like because I'm obsessed with the medium. Like I wanted. I feel all my comics are sort of about comics, and other things, and interpersonal relationships, and maybe how the world works. But definitely it was one of the ideas, like going in, was that, you know, we talk about a character that is negative space and that's paper, and then a character that is black, you know, and that is ink. And you know, that I almost feel like when you say it out loud, it sounds so simple, but it's like, I never say that in the comic.
No.
You know, it's but that's sort of like my like night and day of this world is like paper and ink. And then, you know, the demigods are, you know, the three colors. And so using that as like, I think there is this creative tension, like between what you draw and what you don't draw, you know, like what's there and what, like how you balance your colors and all that. And so all of those are sort of aspects of the story. But I think why Drome to me feels successful is that, yeah, it works on that level, but it also works on a narrative level. It works on like maybe a philosophical level. It works on just an action comic level, you know, and it's that it's not one of those things, it's all of those things put together. And so you can read it and not have not even think about these characters being paper and ink and stuff, and it still works. You know, it never gets lost in that, and you never see a hand drawing an image, which would kill me. Like it'd be like, oh, so obvious. But that it's, I think, I don't know if you hadn't thought of it and your friend said it to you and you're like, oh, that does work. And when he said to
like I told you yesterday, like he's the brain of our duet, you know. Like,
but like,
and I was like, oh, but yes, and it totally makes sense when you think about it and you go through it again and you say, okay, so now I see it.
Yeah,
I totally see it. Yeah,
and so like, I like having those subtleties present, but not being like, if you, I feel like I trust readers a lot, like. And I never want to hit them over the head with an idea. And so it's like putting it there, and it's like, you can pick it up if you want, but you don't have to. Like you, and I feel that's sort of my whole attitude with like the book. It's like the title doesn't really tell you much, you know, but you can figure it out if you want, but you don't have to. But if you want, there is something to figure out.
And especially like it also allows to have conversations about the books, because if we don't really read it the same way, so I mean that's maybe the most interesting thing about putting out your story, because you I was thinking like, are you thinking like, I hope they get the really hidden message or the hidden
I hope people see it, but I also hope people maybe read it in a different way too, like that there are possibilities for how it could be read that are not necessarily what I consciously thought, and leaving it open enough. Like I like that I like a movie where it ends and you're like, I'm not sure, like where it makes you think and question and maybe ask what the morals of this movie are. That's a much more interesting movie to me than one that is, you watch it and you're like, got it. where the understanding comes too easy. And I hope, I like questions coming from it. And it's not the question of what happened. You know, I think Drome, sometimes people say experimental, but I don't think it's very experimental, because I think it's very clear, and I think the narrative reads very smoothly, you know. So I think it's never a question of like, wait, what just happened on this page? It's like, no, you know what happened. It's like, what does it mean? And I like, what does it mean, or what is it about, as a question. And is it about this? Could it be about this? Does this work as this? You know, I like having that possibility.
Okay. So we know that you're going to work again with Mike Mignola.
Yes.
And are you already also planning to do a whole new project by your own? On your own?
Yeah, I'm working. I'm always working on regular paying gigs, but I'm working on smaller things right now on my own, sort of working to build up the energy and the creative juice to do something big. And the smaller things are sort of all over the place. I like experimenting and doing things that are different. So I'm working on a shorter comic now that's about it's sort of a surreal comic about a panda delivery person. That's sort of a comedy, but it's a very different way of drawing, which is more focused on sort of the individual drawings and jamming as many ideas into an image as possible, but not necessarily coherently. It probably won't be successful, but and then playing with different ideas of like how I can draw or how to create a page before building up to like another big book, which could be like a follow up to Drome, at least emotionally, I guess.
Okay, we'll be looking forward to that then. Thank you so much for your time, Jesse.
Thank you, Arno.